separate pools, then we're happy to go with that.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I guess the one thing I'd advocate for is that if a floor ended up, going into effect and it ended up being relevant for, sort of like every day for months, I would advocate just dropping the idea of a floor and moving to a pool.
That's fair. Yeah, that's a good point. So the let me make sure I understand your comments here. You're saying if in the event the floor is constantly being hit because there's way more eSIMs coming online and everybody's installing their app and you would expect to have many more phones than flowers. There's no way you would ever bump up against the floor or make the ratio be higher. Your point was then just toss the concept of a floor because you're never going to get off of the floor, and so then it's kind of
becomes a split.
Yeah.
Because you keep hitting the floor and you're doing the split anyway.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Yeah. So I think that the two concept is like, do we think that there should be a split between the rewards there that is not per action but per pool? I want to hear from people that say we shouldn't, because I love the counterpoint, but we think it makes sense to have some number there. Two is the 30/70 number right? And then three, Chris's point here is like, should we just make it a hard split as opposed to making it a variable that's capped at that? Okay.
And the thing I would ask the community is, I know reporting and statistics are very important, right? And a lot of people have been looking up their picks earned as the statistic. If we do introduce a pool or a split, we introduce a different paradigm for the picks. So the old pick kind of becomes meaningless, and you start having two different sets of picks. You have a validator set of picks, and then you have a provider set of picks. I think that's an okay framework. I think that's a framework that we could move to. But I just want to make sure that the community is appraised on that and that they have an idea of how that would change their data gathering activities. So in that light, would it be more useful data-wise to have that separation and see your earnings broken down now instead of by picks? They would be broken down by your validation activities, which is a separate pool of picks, and then your provider activities, your flower activities, which is a separate pool of picks. Is the community okay with that, right? And again, that's a shift in paradigm. It's not something that we're shying away from. It's something that we want to talk to you guys about, get your feedback, and then make a decision and then make it clear to everybody. So yeah, that's kind of the thinking that we had there. Is like, how do we make sure that reporting is clear, and how do we make sure that y'all understand exactly why you're getting the rewards that you're earning, right?
Yeah, that sounds good. I think that like as soon as any kind of floor or ceiling becomes like regularly something that's in effect, that ends up just being like a stumbling block to the legibility of the scoring system for anybody who hasn't been involved from the beginning. But in the short term, I think it totally makes sense until something starts getting hit regularly. Anyway, I'll back down so Colton can speak.
Yeah, thanks for taking this into consideration. I really appreciate it. I know for a lot of people it might not seem like an issue right now, but then as density comes, it's going to become a problem. I've thought of a few different ways that it could be implemented, and I mean it's skinning the cat a different way. But if it were pools, we could do a certain number of PCN is allocated to bumblebees, and if they don't hit that number, the excess PCN is given to the flowers, which is similar to how Helium does POC versus data transfer, or possibly shifting the bumblebees back down to one PCN. But I tend to prefer the pool. I think that's the simplest way to do it.
Would you do a pool per device type, or would you do a pool per action type, meaning provider validator, or do you want a bumblebee?
Yeah, I prefer. Yeah, I think that the bumblebees are more work than the honeybees right now. just because of in terms of getting the signal and everything. It just seems more active. So maybe I I would keep them separate for the time being, but I think ultimately that like bumblebees, honeybees, they should just be the same pool, and then flowers should have their own pool. Yeah.
Yeah, just sharing a little bit our thinking here. So we believe the bumblebees will continue to be more valuable to the network because we get different signal information from it, including all of the other networks that are available, and that's harder to see from a phone. So we think that there's potentially a different per hex validation for each in terms of what the value to the network is. But both of those perform the validation task, and so they should probably be in the same bucket is the way we're thinking of it. And so there's are you providing coverage, and then are you validating the coverage? Those are the two kind of split that we want to have in our mind. What's your thoughts there?
Okay, so I guess that makes a lot of sense then if you keep that one pick for the honeybees and two picks for the bumblebees. Then when you have them both together in a pool that's segregated from the rest of the rewards, then it should even out better and still be able to reward the honeybees, but keep it in a ratio of their own in comparison to the bumblebees.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, meaning that the ratio from bumblebee or honeybee combined should be the same, as opposed to there's a bumblebee specific tranche.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
Okay, that's good. ML Lab.
Hello there again. Yeah, I was actually going to pretty much bring up exactly what Colton brought up here. And it did you bringing up the fact that bumblebees actually have additional capabilities compared to honeybees brings up an interesting light, right? As far as like extra validation, like of other networks, extra visibility of other networks. I'm also wondering if honeybees maybe having like a functionality that bumblebees don't have. Perhaps I don't know. I'm just throwing it out here. Like certain types of data usage, like what's actually conducted as far as like validating the data itself. Let's say streaming, just to throw an example, like streaming a YouTube video or something like that, right? So perhaps a metric can be drawn on like how usable the actual data quality becomes. So it's something that I was imagining honeybees can have an easier time seeing. Not that that can't be coded into the firmware of like a bumblebee, but perhaps that's more limited in terms of the variety of possible data use cases.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So I'll give a little insight into the difference between the two. So we believe the honeybee is a great way to validate because everybody's got a phone in their pocket, and it could happen in the background while you're walking around, which we think is a great idea. But what your phone won't do is it won't be able to scan repeatedly for multiple networks, and when it does attach to a network, it can't immediately run a ping test, a speed test, and measure the uplink and downlink speed along with the radio signal quality. And so with all of those metrics, we're building this score of how well the flowers are performing on the RF side. And while we can see the other network cells from T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, without physically doing an attach and running that speed network, you're not really getting a clear view of the quality of the coverage you have, yet alone a view of the capacity that's available, right? Those are the two things that I think DY is revolutionizing. Is it's bringing coverage to places that don't have it, and it's bringing capacity to places that need more. And without doing a network attach and then probing the network and seeing what it is, you're not getting that validation there. So we're thinking specifically on how to give rewards for third-party network assessments. We think that's going to be on a different time scale, right? So with Pollen, as we're rolling out a new network, we want to constantly monitor it, and we do that daily. We think that validating the other macro networks is something that possibly can happen on a monthly or weekly potentially cadence, because they're not changing that often anyway. So that's the think about how that would be important. And then that's the differentiation. Now, ultimately, when you're downloading a video, if you have, this is more of an Android thing than an iOS thing, is you should be able to monitor and assess the network quality in the background, and then automatically relay that information and do the validation kind of tacitly in the background, as opposed to actively now. So, and I think that when we get to that point is when the Honeybee validations and the Bumblebee validations should really be the same, because you're getting that value from there. But we're just not there on the app on iOS, or Android yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like that makes perfect sense. So I imagine this will dynamically shift as far as incentives and dividing out various policies related to the different pieces of equipment. Seems like in that sense it's still the case. Bumblebees have that extra ability to analyze all this extra RF data, and being so, perhaps that implies you're saying that it implies a potential shift in incentives down the road, right?
Yeah. So I'm saying, just like right now, we give the Honeybee is different rewards than the Bumblebee, because we get different information from both. Down the road, when they match, then they should probably be the same. But it's unlikely that the phone-based, honeybees will be able to do scanning of other networks in parallel to monitoring ours. And therefore, there's probably always going to be some sort of differential between the two. Especially as we improve the software to the Bumblebee, and maybe even add other capabilities to it. The objective for the Bumblebee is really a true dedicated validator. If you can have most of that being done on the phone, then you should be getting most of the rewards. Right now, we're pretty far from that, and we're working to bridge that gap.
Okay, and that sounds nice. I do have one more point to bring up, probably already useful for this conversation. That is like the process in regards to how maybe we can feedback or input as far as these processes go. Maybe it's a bit early to speak about this, but before it was mentioned that there'd be perhaps a pollen improvement proposal type process. But right now it seems like we're communicating feedback via these beehives and ad hoc Discord messages, perhaps, and maybe support emails. But I'm just kind of wondering if there's a process that maybe is a little more streamlined for people perhaps voting, like just like today. It seems like you're calling out votes for 70/30, or as far as distributing between validators and providers, or something that's a little more streamlined. I'm just kind of wondering if that could already come in effect.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, we need to standardize a process for doing this. We talked about doing pollen improvement plan. I think we do need to put that in place. We just hired Josh, our amazing support manager, and he put our we start putting things in the Git book, but we're standardizing in terms of getting things more and more clean. And one of the things that we're going to do next is, I think, launch the pollen improvement process, so that people can, anybody can submit them, and then we could talk about them, and then we'll do an official vote and go from there. That's a total thing. We think these are important changes to make before that is available, and so that's why we do these BeeHive and listen to what people say, and hopefully people feel comfortable voicing their opinion. Even if not here, definitely send us Discord messages privately, or our favorite, the support tickets. They get everybody's attention. So
Yeah, no, I'm
go
just gonna say, we are working on the Git book, as Anthony mentioned, and we see that as a one-stop shop for all of the white paper to live, all of the rewards related information to live, all of the announcements that you guys see on Medium, on all the different blog posts. We hope that all that will be aggregated in that one place so that you can always know what the latest reward rules are and what the latest set of game characteristics are out there so that you guys can be appraised on that. And that's also where we would get all of this feedback from y'all and get rolling on these improvement proposal plans.
Cool.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for letting me talk.
No, thanks for bringing it up. This is what this is for. So,
Oh, and I was also going to say we want to standardize the BeeHive. We want to make sure that we do that at a certain cadence, at a set cadence. We haven't determined what the cadence is yet. It's either going to be like, once a week or once every other week or something like that. But
I like short once every week. It'd be nice, otherwise it's gonna be a 3-hour meeting. No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding.
So yeah, but
Yeah, myself.
that's forthcoming as well. Is we're going to announce a set cadence.
Yeah. Love to hear feedback later on if people like weekly or if that's too much or whatever. Jay Platt.
More frequency sounds good to me too.
Okay, sounds good. We'll do a daily on the hour at the top of the hour every day. Just kidding. Once a week, we'll start for now. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, guys. Yeah, just for some context around kind of this question you're asking, just wanted to get an idea of, what the team's thoughts were on how quickly you're planning to scale Bumblebee hardware compared to flowers in the network. Because I got a sense that early on, we're trying to move towards honeybees and more of the eSIM validation, but it sounds like, bumblebees are kind of critical to the early validation process of the network. So, just any high-level thoughts on how hardware is going to scale, respective to each kind of type of unit would be helpful.
Yeah. So early on, we needed to do 1-to-1, so everybody that got somewhere was able to do that. We think that the validator hardware should be mobile and therefore validating multiple flowers. It's not just something you put on your desk next to your flower, right? That's not it will work for that, but it's not what the main purpose is. The main purpose is kind of having it be in your car and then, validating the network there. We think the Honeybee app and eSIM is a great gateway for onboarding new users and scaling the validation to many more users that may not have a flower. And it's a easier usability and better way to going. Ultimately, we think we want to have a continuous connectivity metric so that we can show in this area from here to here, you do get coverage. And we think we're going to do that by a mix of Honeybee and Bumblebee, but we're hoping to track 1-to-1 on the flower to Bumblebee for deployments. We think that over time that will shrink and there will be more flowers than bumblebees, and then there'll be obviously more honeybees than bumblebees as well.
And as Anthony described, we are on track to introduce a lot of the Bumblebee functionality into the Honeybee, and we see that as the main enabler for the validators in the future. So right now we're tracking 1-to-1 on the bumblebees to flowers, but eventually we're going to kind of let the honeybees go, and we're going to hope that covers all the validation activities, but that's forthcoming.
Yeah. There's been a plan where the honeybee becomes like professional drive test. It's a more high end. It's doing a bunch of other stuff as well, but I think we'll leave that for the next chat.
Yeah, thanks. That's helpful. And I was also thinking something along those lines of a combination of scores where you could kind of potentially make a local pool where X honeybee validations in a certain area or hex kind of allowed for X bumblebee validations without getting capped. And if there was not enough honeybees, then potentially you're reward.
I like that. That's a great idea. So let me paraphrase what you're saying to make sure I understand. You're saying if you're in an area and there are multiple flowers, but there's not enough honeybees or bumblebees to validate, then you'd be able to juice up or turn down the validations based on the density. Interesting. Okay, That's a great idea. I don't know
Yeah,
how
and
to
I think
implement that without gaming, but like that's an interesting concept. Part of that actually, I'll say one quick thing here. So that's why we went to one hex validation per flower per day, even if you had multiple honeybees going through, is kind of the catch to the opposite of that, where we were over rewarding. There wasn't a lot of value in having 12 people validate this one hex, but knowing that this hex is covered is more useful. And you're going kind of the opposite of saying, if you didn't have enough validators, how would you go and do that? Am I right to?
no,
Is
I'm
my
almost thinking. I actually was thinking kind of on more on the capped side, so kind of attacking the gaming issue is that like you would need X amount of honeybee validations in an area in order to not decay. The nth number of bumblebee witnessing, right? So if the seventh bumblebee witnessed one hex, like sure the flower didn't earn any more, but that seventh bumblebee still did earn something. But if there's not enough honeybees in that area, then the ratio of bumblebee to honeybee, where honeybee kind of acts as like the concept of density, it really wouldn't make sense from a ratio perspective. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
I think I see what you're saying. Let me think. Let's have the team and us like we'll chat about this more. I like where you're getting to is basically we want to get to more fair percentage distribution based on the density of what's happening there. So interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for your question, TJ.
Hey,
What's
hey,
up?
Anthony. How's it going,
Hey,
man?
good. How are you doing?
Good,
Thanks for
good.
joining.
Yeah, sorry about earlier. My audio was acting wacky. So, good to meet everybody. My name's TJ. I'm the co-founder here at CalChip Connect. Very, very excited about working with the community here and partnering with Pollen to help deliver some really innovative technology out in the U.S. and just listening in on this call. It's really great to see everybody working together and brainstorming and having a very interactive approach. So look forward to supporting the community, look forward to supporting Pollen and growing a massive network together. So
Thanks, TJ. That's nice. We're glad to have you on the pollen team here. Anything else you want to talk about?
As some of you may be aware, we're going to be doing our first drop tomorrow for Pollen Solutions. So at 12 Eastern, we're going to be opening up hardware and solutions for folks to sell. So feel free to go to calchipconnect.com. You can go subscribe there through email and get notified. But yeah, we look forward to pushing lots more drops out and really our expertise is in the supply chain side of things. So we spend a lot of time working with product manufacturers and semiconductor companies to help drive more parts and products into the ecosystem. So that's where I'll be spending a lot of my time and supporting things here. But yeah, look forward to working with everybody. Anything else you want me to throw out there, Anthony?
No. We know the drop and talked about the other flower in the beginning. I just want to give you a little bit of time on the floor to share anything you want to share.
Love it.
So,
I love it.
thank
Yeah,
you.
and
So,
maybe I'll just take a few minutes and talk a little bit about CalChip. So we were founded a couple years ago, and we were initially founded as an IoT company. So a lot of our initial experience was working with sensors and gateways and bundling solutions for companies to deploy. And being born during the COVID era, we knew that e-commerce was going to be extremely important for, digital purchasing and things along that nature. So we've, integrated some really cool systems with our website and platform that we leverage, and we've been, now working in blockchain for the last 18 months, doing distribution for various blockchains. And we want to continue to grow that as we move forward. There's a lot of cool devices coming out into the market that, as they get deployed, will allow people to mine different cryptocurrencies and, eventually maybe bring all these things together, which is really exciting down the road. So, so yeah, we're continuing to put a lot of focus in blockchain and, combining that with our IoT knowledge. If anybody has, thoughts around sensors they may want to deploy or different types of data they might want to gather, CalChip is a good place to come to, kind of sort through those as well. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Thank you guys for hosting this. I don't know if this is to TJ or Anthony, but this drop tomorrow, do you guys have an idea of how many units you have in stock and what the lead time would be if you place an order?
Yeah, so we're going to be dropping somewhere between 35 and 50 solutions to start. And the lead time is going to be right around 2 weeks. We do have everything in stock, but that does take some time for provisioning once orders come in. So we plan to have everything shipped within 14 days. And we're also, working to better automate the provisioning process on the CalChip side. So, we'll be able to shorten those lead times as we go. And then we're going to plan on multiple drops monthly as we pursue or move forward together. Does that help?
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, more CalChip.
Get more CalChip. Too much CalChip. Just to add to that, the company has grown very fast, and we've definitely set expectations internally that units hit the mail within 24 hours of a payment clearing. This is a unique situation, though. This is the first time we're configuring more than a couple units to Solana wallets and doing all the fancy magic that they do at the Pollen HQ to get items in the mail. So, that's the reason for a couple day delay. All the hardware is in the warehouse. We are working hard to make that awareness high by publishing pictures on Twitter and elsewhere. But all the much more hardware than we will be shipping in this drop is in the warehouse. It's just a matter of provisioning it to the right Solana wallet address and then shipping it out. So, but yeah, cap at 14 days.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Anthony. That's a great thing. I'll give you an update. So I think tomorrow we get 1,000 AGWs in-house. So we'll be continuing the rollout on our stuff for the batch 2 orders. So very excited to see these going. Batch 3, sorry. Reemergence. All right, continue on. Thanks, TJ. Thanks, Jameson. So SaaS update buttercups. So we noticed recently some folks describing range reduction due to unknown reasons. We dug into a couple of the spots, and we found, I think, that it was always a SaaS turning down the power to the buttercups, sometimes due to temporary activity, sometimes due to unknown. And so I think we've resolved those issues, but we expect that there's this is something that potentially could happen occasionally going forward. Sri did a great work last week in terms of getting visibility into what's happening on the radio into the Explorer. So if you look at the Explorer on the Flower name, you can see there's additional information. It does not show yet whether or not the SaaS is turning your power down, but that's something that we're going to add over time, not this coming week. But we want to basically have is affecting your earning in terms of even also whether or not you're getting. We've sent you the rewards, and that you would be not receiving them because of another Solana outage or something else. So basically, we think that's going to be the place to go for all the visibility, and adding the SaaS issues into that is one. Things that we've looked at this. So folks might think like, oh, well, why would I want an outdoor flower when I can potentially get chopped by the SaaS? There's actually several discussions ongoing with federal government in terms of increasing the power limits for the SAS. No actual concrete proposals there, but if you look at the spectrum, and you can see some of the other carriers are arguing for this as well, you could potentially have it where you have 71 dBm on C-band right next to 43 dBm, and these are the power levels, which is basically almost like 500 times more, adjacent, and so you could expect to potentially, in areas where there is no congestion, the power limits might be relaxed, which doesn't fix the issue when there is congestion, but it might help in places where there is not. Other things on the SAS, we switched from Google to federated after a lot of feedback from folks that say they preferred that. So I think that might contribute also to rolling over everybody's registrations and credentials through that. That's our SAS Buttercup update. Hot item. Yeah, go ahead. Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Talking about missing flowers, and we know that the flowers themselves are still earning. We found that some of the flowers are actually being reported as in the office or in our default location. So we're working on figuring out what's going on there in terms of what the reporting issue is and where the data streams are mismatched or crossed over. So once we do figure that out, we do expect all of the quote unquote missing flowers to reappear on the map. Right now, again, to emphasize, they're not missing. They're being located as if they are at our office, at our headquarters, but that's like a default thing. That's not the actual data stream that's coming in. So we hope to fix that soon. And we think that when we do the switch over to the new SAS, we'll have some of this stuff figured out, hopefully.
Cool. Thanks, Sri. Next up, I know a lot of people are excited about this too, tokenomics. We want to provide clarity in terms of there's the lockup pools and the allocations from the variety of pools there. So it's a lot of the focus has been on the rewards, the 50% out there. We haven't talked about what the 20% sponsor pool has been, or the 15% investor, or the 15% ecosystem. I think it's important that we have a clear statement on that. So we're going to be publishing a schedule that shows what those are happening. But high level, we wanted to kind of share with you guys first. For us, we see the ecosystem pool as a set of individuals or businesses that can contribute things to the network that is different than money. So that could be a grant to an individual for implementing a PIP. It could be a grant from an individual for fixing bugs in some sort of open source software that we're using, be it Magma or others. It could be somebody providing access to their physical locations for individuals to set up, like you can imagine a business chain providing that. It could be somebody potentially even providing their own spectrum that they have that would be giving us this. We think there's a lot of flexibility in that. Those grants are being granted with a vesting schedule and a lockup period of what the lockup period we're in? It's 1 year? 3 years? No.
Our base case is 3 years, yeah.
But the first lockup is not 3 years. It's 3-year vest. So there's a 1 year cliff on the vesting, and then it's over 3 years. And then but what's the lockup? It's a 3-year lockup?
Yes.
Okay, so they can't sell any before the 3 years. Okay. I'm sure the community will like that a lot.
Some are longer too.
Okay, great. So we want to clarify this. So don't take my word for it, but we're going to publish an official document that shows not names and individuals on either the ecosystem or the investor pool, but the magnitude and the time online in which these pools will come liquid and hit the market. The investor pool is for individuals and businesses that provide money to incentivize the network, and part of that is for helping Pollen grow by being able to support more radios and bring online more capability and go through that. So, and the sponsored pool is the Pollen team take for the ecosystem, setting it up and making everything work. And that you want to share the vesting schedule on that, Christian?
That's also that's owned by Pollen, the company, the Inc. That's also subject to the same 3+ year lockup that the pools are subject to.
Great. So I thought people wouldn't be interested in hearing that, but the definitive answer will be the written information share that we're gonna put that out in a short time frame, because I think that will bring a lot of clarity to that. Obviously, as a lot of new equipment is going to come online, the 300,000 PCN per day is going to be distributed amongst more people. We think this makes sense because we're obviously growing the network and making it more valuable. So those go hand in hand with that. So if you made a 20,000 plus PCN day, those are going to be harder and harder to achieve going forward. Let's see. So there's no changes to the tokenomics there, but I'm happy to take questions if there's.
So the only change that we may make in the very near future is, I think, instead of separating out payments for every device type, I think we're going to start doing one payment per wallet for all of your earnings for the day, and that's just to reduce the amount of pressure on our end in terms of the number of transactions that we have to carry out. As you guys can tell, the rewards processing is taking longer and longer every day. That's because we have more and more logs, more and more transactions. We're working on speeding that up, but I think this is going to be a stopgap for that, for reducing the number of transactions.
Also less gas fees for transactions. So I think it's better. No, because they're small. Yeah.
Those gas fees are going to start.
Yeah. And we're actually thinking over time, we might even make it where you would earn the PCN and then choose to cash out or let it build up in terms of for being able to save the gas fees. Because it doesn't make sense that every user of a Honeybee, as we have, hopefully millions of them out there, needs to earn and cash out into their wallet their amount of PCN every single day. But that's the further down feature. Just telling you guys where we're heading to in terms of the directional of where we're heading. Tokenomics questions? I know people were really excited about that before. Sounds like not. Great.
To address what happened last week, I think just to put it out there, a lot of people know, but Solana did go down last week. That was part of the reason why we didn't send out payments. And so we are working on ways to be more robust to that, and we have methods on our end to make sure that we're tracking all the unsent payments so that they get sent out in a timely manner. I think the community was a little worried initially, but was eventually fine because they saw their payments come in. I just want to make it clear that you may not see your payments every day immediately on that day, but we do have a system for back paying and making sure that all the transactions that didn't go through or failed out are being.
Well, we want to see the rewards being like when they're computed, they should be live on the Explorer, so you can see that. And then they get flushed out, and then they sit in a queue for Solana, and they go from there. And then over time, that queue is like, well, maybe you don't need them every day. You can choose to whenever you want, and you can press a checkout and get them then. But that's not what we're doing right now. Yeah. So the only thing we're changing, you're saying, is batching everybody into one.
Yeah. I'll make that shift probably.
Okay, cool. Tokenomics, I'll keep talking. If you guys have questions, jump in. Cheating, we spent a lot of time focused on thinking and figuring out how to combat cheating and keeping the network honest. We think it's a key aspect of a healthy network, being able to enforce that. We're looking at RSSI and other RF signature matching. We're specifically looking at addressing people that are moving their flower live to get a higher coverage map. You can imagine if you tethered your phone to the AGW and put it on your car, and you moved your bumblebee and your flower around, and you do that, you could get really good coverage in lots of places because you're doing that's kind of not what we're making, and so we want to actively disincentivize that. We talked about this previously, but we're thinking there's going to be a purgatory where if there's a cheating activity, the rewards will get cut, and you'll be able to see that yourself. And then if you continue to cheat, then you'll get kicked off the network. That's that there. And then the last topic was, which we talked a little bit before, is improving, keep improving the bumblebees in terms of faster boot up speeds, faster attach speeds. But also, I think the new functionality will be to validate other networks at the same time, and thinking through what kind of frequency we want to reward and for that functionality. All right, Anders was first.
Yeah, hey, I didn't know if you're going to talk more about cheating and stuff, but are you guys thinking about adding assisted GPS to the bumblebees?
Yeah, we're definitely looking at doing several things. So one is like providing corrections to make the bumblebee GPS better, understanding that it's not, correct, reprocessing the GPS after the fact, and then also looking at other signatures like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to see that you're where you are. Because the moving the flower is one aspect. The other one is having your bumblebee report an incorrect location. Part of that's going to be caught with the signal strength monitoring that we're seeing from the bumblebee, and that's one of the reasons why phones versus dedicated hardware makes a difference. But we hear you loud and clear that the location spoofing is a key cheating vector that we're focusing on.
That's good to hear. You can also use LoRa too, right? So just throw it out.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because that'd be super interesting, because we thought about that. My view is that the LoRa positioning accuracy is actually less than the GPS accuracy. Now the GPS, like LoRa will be like, hey, you're in California versus Florida. I mean, maybe you're closer than that too, but it's not like I'm on this corner versus that. It's not like a one block level resolution reliably there. If it is, we're super interested in getting that. But as far as I can tell,
I think it is not to replace GPS, is to verify that it's not spoofed, per se, right? So I think BeeHive HiveMapper is using LoRa, I think, for assisted GPS. I don't know how they do it, though, but I just know that they are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea, but I want to kind of really understand how it's being done, just to make sure it's not we just throw more stuff. We could put like a compass on there and like a sextant and like all kinds of other stuff that's like, if it's not being used correctly, isn't gonna like really help. I think that LoRa is really good for being able to tell you whether or not you have a chance at being where your GPS is saying, but you could still multiply your earnings, by having a bad GPS, and a correct LoRa, network signature, versus the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth networks will improve your positioning accuracy higher there. Now, if I'm wrong, I'd love to be wrong, and I'd love to know more about that. But that's I would say send me everything you have on what you think LoRa is doing to prevent the GPS from being spoofed or being incorrect, and we would definitely either have you come to the office or do a Zoom with you and dive in and do that.
I had just a clarification for what you said before. So as I understand that you guys gonna try to validate, free space loss, if they have impossible GPS drift and those kind of things. That's part of this measure you're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's not just like free space. You could also see like, hey, this other bumblebee that looks more legit and is in a similar position is reporting the same signal, right? So we're not approaching it from here's the pure line of sight approach. We're approaching it from these are all the metrics that we're seeing, and let's train a model for looking at this information and seeing like, this doesn't look and smell like the other ones, and that gets flagged, and then somebody reviews it and is like, okay, we need to come up with some sort of algorithmic cache. Yeah,
Much more statistical than physics-based, if that makes sense.
because physics are like hyper complicated in terms of multipath in the cities and everything else, and like it might be like difficult. Now, if you're a kilometer away and you're getting perfect signal, there's clearly something happening. It's wrong. So there's checks for that, but we want to get to where we're able to like find somebody that's doing 2 or 3x the coverage that they should be, when that should be the case, and we want that in a fully automated way, for it to scale.
And you said you're gonna start the uptime monitoring again, or maybe I missed that part.
We're looking at the statistics on it. It's not coming on, in the next week. We do think the uptime is important, because we want people to be able to connect to the Pollen network 24/7. So at some point in the future, it will come back. We had some bugs, and so we're now looking at, we're implementing this in a regression test and looking back in history and say, hey, who would have been dinged, how much, and why. And so that will come in there, and we actually would like to show like, here's what the earnings would have been should the change come in. So so you'll have like at least a week where you would see, here's your current earnings, and then here's what your current earnings would have been with the uptime check. So that you could see like, oh, I'm not passing the test. What's happening? I need to like fix this or whatever. And that is a way to like provide more clarity into what's happening ahead of the change.
Yeah, and also we've introduced the real-time statistics into the Explorer for the flowers, which we didn't have before. And I think that was a critical thing for people to understand what their uptime is and understand if they're hitting those requirements or not. And now that we have that information completely available, we feel more comfortable instituting an uptime check. But as Anthony mentioned, the check itself still has to be rewritten a little bit to be more inclusive and to be more kind of all-encompassing, rather than the pretty draconian check that we had before that ended up throwing a lot of flowers out, and we didn't think that was fair to the flowers, especially because they didn't know.
Yeah, especially early on. I think if you have a clear rule on what it is, you could see what the earning would have been for a while past, and then you can adjust, and then we can maybe even have it on for a week, and then we have a community meeting, and everybody can voice their opinions on it, and then we go and implement from there. But the idea is like, if somebody's online for 1 hour out of the day, that's not useful for the network, and we shouldn't be rewarding that, even if magically 20 bumblebees saw him or her flower online there. We want, we're building a real network, and so there is an uptime requirement that's going to be part of that, just like you would expect your provider to be there.
3 months, guys. Project.
Sorry, I missed that. Do you mind repeating?
Sorry. No. Thank you so much for you answering my question, and it's a fun project as such. So thank you.
Cool.
Guys.
Yeah. Thank you. No, it's super fun. I'm enjoying. I'm having a blast. So, thanks, Anders. Jay Platt.
Hey, one more from me. So in terms of cheating, I thought a pretty good way to close this loophole is the limiting that the flower BB 7 hex cap to be flower wide, because I don't really understand the logic of having, a broader flower wide cap, or kind of, no cap at all, when it seems like some flowers can, like a dandelion's covering 20 unique hexes with multiple bumblebees. So instead of, making it just 7 hexes per bumblebee, maybe make it, 7 hexes per bumblebee, but then add like a, 12 to 14 total hex cap, globally, if that makes sense.
I think it's possible. I think it's definitely doable. I think we'd have to kind of investigate what the what the reporting and what the scheme would be, but like I think it's definitely something we could consider.
Yeah, so you want the cap to be by flower, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You yeah,
And
that makes sense.
If
I-
the cap is, or are we still rewarding the bees for visiting? I think we just have to revisit those questions and kind of.
You might have a bee reward, but not a flower reward past that because you might be. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, JP.
Yeah, no, I just wanted, like, I'm thinking through, like, what is the value of the hex limits then? And, like, aren't you kind of, like, avoiding the hex limits by allowing multiple bumblebees to validate in different spots? Like, if the concept is that a dandelion can cover around 7 hexes, then if you allow multiple bumblebees to cover in different directions, you, like,
No,
open
that's
up
true.
the
That's
factory
a good
game.
point.
I totally agree with you. I think what's happening is some people are taking. I definitely agree that some people are taking advantage of that by doing a very sophisticated gaming scheme.
Yeah.
The amount of gaming that you need to do is a little more sophisticated than like the average gaming, but I agree it still exists, and I think that what you've suggested could mitigate that. We just have to kind of investigate it and put through all the different paces. And we have some tokenomics related models that we run, and we also, as Anthony mentioned, run the test tokenomics on the existing rewards pool to see how we would look. So we would perform those kinds of validation functions and figure out whether or not it's proving to be effective as an anti-gaming limiter before we introduce it. And so I think that the suggestion is really sound. I think we just have to test it and just see.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like at the extreme, if you had 10, bumblebees, you can't have 10 different 7 axes of coverage for the dental. Yeah. So we'll need to fix that. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that suggestion. That's a really good point, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to strongly endorse that last suggestion. I think, especially with full emergence and shipping to everywhere, if the hex caps stay as like about bumblebee flower pairs instead of something global, it's only a matter of time before somebody with like a farm or a lake just gets enormous rewards by cycling through a bunch of bumblebees on some big flat area that nobody lives in. The question I had was, can the Bumblebee scan on bands other than 48, or is it just band 48 that it's got the capability for?
No, the Bumblebee can scan on not every single band, but it can scan on Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T in the US. It can scan on a couple international bands, but not all of them.
Okay, yeah, one thing I want to throw out as a suggestion, and I'm suggesting this from an armchair, so it could turn out that there's more complications here than I imagined, but as one potential anti-gaming thing and for dealing with GPS spoofing, seems like you could scan for all the operators in an area and then back check that information against like a known database of cell phone tower locations. And there's at least one open source one that's like reasonably reliable, and I think there might be some like smaller, more trusted ones. And I think with that info, you could probably, especially in denser areas, do some triangulation to get another signal of where the bumblebee is actually located.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, you're spot on. That was my question while I was pushing back on Laura earlier. So this is a fantastic suggestion, and that's definitely something that's coming. Not this week, but it's coming soon. And that's the right way to do it. I mean, from our perspective, that's twofold. One is it shows you where there's gaps in different providers' coverage, and second, it's also helping you confirm that you are roughly where you should be. So spot on that. Yep.
Oh, great. Awesome to hear that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the idea there is like that doesn't work where we think Pollen's gonna be super helpful, which is providing a network where there is no service, but that's not where the cheating is, right? That doesn't catch your lake cheating happening, but that's a different problem. But it's definitely something that we want to look at doing for sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Keep them coming. That was great. Yeah. Colton?
Yeah, just want to touch base also on multiple eSIMs per device, which isn't necessarily cheating because you're giving them to do with as you please, I guess. But is there going to be a system put in place to make sure that it's one eSIM per device? Or actually, I did want to know too, when when our eSIM's just not going to earn PCN? Like, is there a time when that ends?
Yeah, it's unclear. I think if you do 2 buckets on the provider versus validator, you might want the honeybee to be in a third bucket to not dilute the true validators versus the attaches. So you might be like 70-20-10 or 70-25-5. And then you have your, ideally 10 million customers. They're splitting that 5% just for using the network and getting some. And it's effectively very small for the rewards for them, but they're still getting some aspect to it. Or we could cut it off altogether once we reach a certain amount of users, because at that point the data should be higher. So we really want to get to that. But the idea of using multiple eSIM per device is not what the multiple eSIMs are for. We want them to be on different devices, and we don't want to be all on the same table in the same room, with somebody plugging them. The idea for this is that you're sharing this with your community and you're letting others use Pollen, as opposed to getting more rewards for yourself by having more on that. So we're not clamping down on that now, but we will at some point in the future. The goal is that we're thinking of having the eSIM be not a unique identifier, but be unique per device. And we think that with that, we can offer a really interesting service where you can't be SIM swapped because the SIM is only issued once per phone. That's also a question for another topic, but we're thinking about that actively. We also think the SIM is really not something that you want to like rotate through, so we don't like the idea that you're gonna cycle through 4 eSIMs to quadruple your rewards there.
Yeah, agree. So, one other quick thing is with testnet with the honeybees, there seems to be some issues going on with like order 3 honeybees and then you only get 1 activation code for 1 device. And is there just an easy solve for that I'm missing? Aside from putting in the form, because it doesn't seem to send a new activation code.
The activation so there's a couple bugs on that that I think some we fixed, some we haven't fixed yet, but if you're buying multiple honeybee sims, you should get multiple downloads for the app, because you need to have 1 iOS per, and you need to also have and that's while we're on test flight. When we get to the main app store, that go away, you'll still need your activation code per NFT in order to make sure that you're installing the correct one. So that will be
We
automated.
realize it's a little cumbersome right now in terms of asking for invitations to the test flight app. We're working on making that a little bit cleaner.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we need 1 unique email per B effectively, because that's how your test flight invite is going to be on that.
I see. Okay. All right. That sounds
A little confusing for people to get, especially if you bought like 5 eSIMs. We only got your 1 email for your order, so people have been having to request them through the support line. That's going to be the case for the near term, but we're working on improving that process as soon as possible.
And the goal is that you'll download the app first and then get the eSIM from the app, so that's the right vector for distributing this to end users, as opposed to going to our store and doing it the way we're doing it now. I mean, we did it this way because this is the only way to do it right now, but that's ultimately the onboarding for the users around. It should be as low friction as possible.
awesome. Hey, quick question too. Are the elderflowers coming with the new stems, or they're still going to be with the last iteration?
They're with the i5 flavored minis form. It looks very, very similar. It just has a different port that you plug in the Ethernet, and then the power is USB-C instead of Canon.
Thank you.
Cool. Tough nut SF.
Hey, can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Great. So just going off what Colton was saying, what do you think about an initial like 1,000 PCN for like later on down the line, 1,000 PCN as like a total to start off with for rewarding you, and then as you had the eSIM on your phone, it would distribute that incrementally throughout the amount of time. But that would kind of take away from the strain of distributing rewards, and then also from having the picks in the pools from like clearly a dandelion is doing much more work than one eSIM on a phone is. So just having an initial amount of rewards that's going to distribute it.
Yeah, I'm not super following what you're saying. So walk me through that again. So you're saying you get 1,000 PCN per SIM when you're buying a SIM, and then that goes to the dandelions that provide you the coverage?
No, so if you were using the eSIM rather than getting rewarded in picks, you would just get rewarded incrementally like 50 PCN a day, and then that would kind of take away from like the guessing and the betting that goes into like, oh, I validated, but I didn't earn as much as I did yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know about the concept of getting rewards just because you're online. I think we want to get the rewards for certain things, and so I think we want to make it where ultimately, like this, the rewards you're going to get are going to come from data usage, right? That's where we want to incentivize, and the coverage is a proxy that we see for being able to confirm that the network's being grown correctly, and we want to create a contiguous network so it's usable, or it's more usable in some areas. Obviously, we're not trying to do full nationwide everywhere. We want to do nationwide where people care about this. And so I'm pretty resistant to just having a reward go out because it is a device is online or something and nobody's actually using it. I'm always open to seeing this, and I think this is when we have the Pollen improvement plan, we can have more clearly a clear forum for suggesting changes like you're doing there. But I think the objective is to create a system with clear rules that rewards behavior that makes the Pollen network better for everyone, and therefore you do the things that make that network better. And just having online, even if you didn't get validated, seems not helpful unless we were going into a new area and we needed to give an incentive for people to set it up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. I know we've been going for an hour and 15 here. More questions? Otherwise, we will follow up. We'll probably do this next week, thinking same time. And we'll have a good update on some of the issues that we talked about today. All right. Going once, going twice. All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week and see you next week. Cheers.